Welcome back to Legitimate Targets, everybody. I hope you're all having a great day. I've got an extremely special guest joining us today, Elon Musk. He is a former South African politician and the father of Elon Musk. Mr. Musk, how you doing? Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm good, thanks. Just come back from the US, so I've got a bit of jet lag, so I look a bit washed out, but I'm okay.
How is the US?
Good, very good. Everything seems to be going really well there now, Certainly better than last year when I was there, so it's much better this year. I was there twice last year. Yeah, no, the mood there in America is very good, very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
I got to ask you, you did an interview this week, and you've been outspoken about this Ukraine proxy war with Russia that's ongoing. How do you feel about Trump's efforts to try and settle a peace there?
Look, I think it's great. I mean, you need to stop this. I mean, obviously, it doesn't make any sense at all. Hundreds of billions are being sent from America and apparently some from Europe. I don't know. I can't believe that they're so stingy, that lot. I don't know. But anyway, the thing is, they, it doesn't make any sense at all. Now, obviously, I'm aware of the fact that after the Soviet Union, or even before that, the Ukraine was about 13 or 14 different kingdoms. And, the countries that we've got today have been sort of patched together, usually without consulting the people who live there, or quite often like that. And so we have a sort of odd situation. I'm aware of the fact that Russian people who are ethnic Russians, forced to live in eastern Ukraine, have been treated badly by the people from western Ukraine in really some pretty harsh ways. And I'm aware of that. And the call since about 2014 for Putin or Russia to step in and do something about it. And then you have the added thing that we started to see with the Biden administration, this rigged election, that the Ukraine was being used as a sort of place to wash money, send money in, and use that money as you give it to this 4% Zelensky is what I'd call him. Apparently he's got 4% support, an ex-mediocre comedian, whose claim to fame is playing the piano with his penis. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, obviously he's some kind of front man. And he's got the chutzpah because he's used to being on stage. But they send him money, and then even this very corrupt senator in America on the Republican side, Mitch McClain, he looks like a woman, but at any rate, an old woman. But anyway, he said, "Don't worry, we send the money to Ukraine, but it comes back to us." And we know what it comes back for. It comes back to go to the arms. What do you call it? The arms.
Arms manufacturers.
Yeah, the arms manufacturers in America, and a lot of it goes into the pockets of these corrupt American politicians, and then it's to buy more weapons to send out. So basically, indirectly, they are taxing the American people, using that money, sending it to Ukraine as a so-called gift. It comes back to the arms. There's a name for it: industrial arms empire.
Military-industrial complex.
Yeah, industrial military complex. Then it comes back to them. A lot of it doesn't go. Payoffs are made left, right, and center, and then off these weapons go back to Ukraine. I mean, it all stinks to high heaven. And then the Russians reported, matter-of-factly, right in the beginning that, or rather in this recent time, about 2 years ago, they reported that they found up to 27 biolabs right on their border. You know, I mean, this is insane. And then you've got an agreement was made many, many years ago that no attempt would be made, for obvious reasons, to include Ukraine in NATO. But now they openly say we're going to include Ukraine in NATO. Now, NATO's military force, so to speak, is technically 10 times bigger than the Russian military force. 10 times the size of what Russia has. Of course, what its effectiveness is another matter. But it's 10 times the size of the Russian military setup. So the whole thing just stinks to high heaven. You know, there's no way around that. It stinks. And then Elon, my son, who is, as it happens, a kind of autistic machine type guy that I bred. He's always been like that. But we are like that, technical people that's, you know, we like to make sense of everything, you know. So, you know, he said a few months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, he said that Ukraine is the biggest graft machine in human history. In other words, it's the biggest corrupt setup in the history of humanity. Now, if that had come from some politician or somebody like that, you could, like, you know, wash it away. But when it comes from Elon, he's the kind of guy who likes to be held to account for everything he's ever said. You know what I mean? And, you know, that's just his way. It's the way he is made up as a person. He's not a politician. He's a useless politician. He's a straight technical guy who likes to make sense of everything. And when he makes a comment or a statement, he likes to be held to that statement. And he said the Ukraine is the biggest graft machine in the history of humanity. So you can't just ignore that. I can't ignore that because Elon is not somebody who throws those kind of things around. So that's where we sit. And so as far as this war is concerned, what I gather is that the eastern parts of Ukraine are really ethnic Russian. And they should not be been incorporated in this patchwork country called Ukraine. It should never have been done. And that's the cause of a lot of this problem. I've spoken to people that I've met from Ukraine over the years, and we're going back quite 10 years or so. I remember one person telling me that Ukraine is run by about 20 families, oligarchy sort of families, that the average person in the street has little idea of what's going on. And so, you know, there's so much more to this than meets the eye. But as far as Trump putting an end to the war and speaking with Putin and so on, I mean, this makes all the sense in the world to me. And as for this Zelensky guy saying, no matter what, we will continue and we'll get all our weapons, we'll scrape the barrel in Europe for more weapons, it makes no sense at all. Nothing.
Do you think that Elon is going to try to utilize Doge to try and investigate where all this money was going into Ukraine? And I'm sure it's just like you can't put the genie back in the bottle once you start to dive into this stuff. But I'd imagine it's much worse than we could imagine. Do you think they're going to try to go after this and prosecute people for the corruption here?
Well, they must. They must. And this corruption thing ended on the 20th of January this year. You know, you saw Elon went into a place. What I wanted to say before I get into that was that I've lost my train of thought. But yes, no, this war must end, and the intention is to end it. And to come up with sensible alternatives to what the situation is. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought. But what Elon did do was, now I remember my train of thought. Elon said that there's like 200 billion missing from the money that went to Ukraine. And that was what I was going to say. So there's $200 billion that they cannot account for. You know, this is staggering. It's an unbelievable amount of money. You know, it would take you like 1,500 years to count to half of it. And this is missing. So you can't have that. You can't have that. Every little business in the world wants to know where every cent goes. You can't operate like that. Anyway, you saw what Elon did right in the beginning. He went to one of the first businesses was USAID or USAID or something, and he said that at one point I spoke with him, and he said, I expect to find rotten apples at. I don't think he mentioned that particular place, but I expect to find rotten apples, and then we have to get them out. He said, but when I opened USAID, the whole barrel was rotten apples. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing we could do. We have to close the whole place down, lock the doors, take the name off the building, and no one comes in there ever again. And they did this as these people were shredding documents, you know, going in there at 24 hours a day, shredding. So the whole thing is so over the top, weird and bad. There's not words for it. It's just not words for it. And so, you know, in exchange for that, Elon, there's a petition now in America to have Elon expelled from the United States. You know, I mean, you know, it's just too hard to believe. Just too freaking hard to believe. You know, but anyway, that's the situation.
Do you worry about your son? I mean, you got a lot of crazies who are committing now acts of terrorism against his company, his enterprise.
Well, yes.
I'm sure.
Well, that's little.
Yes.
You know, that's small peanuts. That's over now. You know, they've arrested them and so on. It's small. It's not major. They try. You know, it's just bums. You know, trying to make a point, scratching people's cars and stuff like that. Not serious. I mean, it's nothing to have a heart attack over. That's done. As far as their safety is concerned, Elon's security team took over from the so-called Secret Service of America after Butler last year. So after Butler last year, Elon's Secret Service, which consists of Elon's bodyguard, I think one, which consists of around 200 people, 200 very, very super men that I've met, took over the security for Trump as well until the 20th of January, because the actual Secret Service cannot be trusted. And to my mind, you know, the attempt on Trump's life last year was almost definitely orchestrated by the shadow government or whatever it is, you know, of part of the FBI, part of the Secret Service. I've got no doubt about it. No doubt whatsoever. That's why it's all been clamped up. That's why you can't get any information about the little boy who was shot dead instantly. You know, the minute the shot was taken on Trump, the little kid was shot. You know, they had him in their sights before the shot was taken on Trump. And the minute the shot was taken on Trump, they shot him. And you know, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. You know, but anyway, the thing is, we have the right people in positions now, like in America especially. Europe, I don't know. It's just a mess. Just a mess. But you know, it's sad because Europeans don't deserve it. They don't deserve the sort of situation that they're living with. You know, they don't deserve that. And an unelected parliament, this European Union, that makes no sense whatsoever. You know, and this unelected parliament, the European Union, who the hell elected them? This woman there, who must have been not bad looking in her day, but anyway, she said we will provide $100 billion to fight this war in Ukraine. And this is 3 weeks ago or something. What I'd like to know is, where's she going to get it from? She takes it from the people, and she has no right to take it from the people. I don't get it. They've got no money anyway. You know, what the hell are they doing? You know, So that's where I stand. I mean, it's crazy. I don't, we tech people, we just don't put up with this kind of crap. They made the
Yes.
biggest
Well,
mistake ever to put somebody like Elon in a position to check things
yeah.
because you
You
can't buy him.
described it. You
You
described him
can't buy him.
earlier as like autistically mechanical or like an autistic engineer, which I think
Yes.
goes to show that he is going to find the corruption wherever it is and dig through all of it and
Yes.
expose all of it. How much of what
I
is
mean,
going on with Elon and Doge do you think is purely ideological versus exactly what you just said, like
no,
just a very
it's not
detailed
ideological.
autistic exposing of it?
No. Totally not ideological. To understand Elon, you'd have to look at him like this, it was my brother, who's a medical specialist, said one day, if Elon's hammering a picture nail into the wall and in the process he chops his thumb off, well, he'll finish putting the nail in the wall before he picks up his thumb because he's got to do the job.
Yeah.
So, no, technical people need to make sense. It's a problem for technical people. They have to make sense of things. Whereas there are other people in the world, fortunately, women, of course, all of them, they don't have to particularly make sense of things, but men like to make sense of things, and technical men are actually driven to make sense out of things, So, putting Elon in that job was, one of the strangest things that's ever happened, in political world anyway, because, it's just, he's going to do the job and they're not going to stop. They're not stopping now, and they're going to go on, and they will find more than $1 trillion dollars of fraud and corruption. They will find that. Yeah, they will, if not more.
If this is a technical exposing of the deep state, do you think that Elon fully understands just how much of a war he's getting himself into with these satanic
Yes.
people?
Yes, no, he's been threatened with death, and but he was threatened with death years ago when Biden didn't invite Tesla but invited all the other electric car so-called car makers to the White House in 2021-22 to discuss turning America into an electric car country by 2035. In that year, Tesla built 1 million electric cars. They sold them all. They had about 450,000 with deposits on order. And Tesla wasn't invited to the White House. And Elon started saying, well, this president is a lunatic. It's a lunatic. Before that time, he actually supported the Democrats. He thought they were, there for the underdog and so forth. But even at that time, I said to him, if you call the president of the US and you have a high profile yourself, a lunatic, then, and it was published, all over that Tesla, Elon is saying Biden is a lunatic. They'll kill you. These people are, they're very fragile. Their positions are not, they sit in little glass houses. They can't take it. They have no way to defend themselves. So if you call them out and you expose them, their response is vicious. They will try and kill you. They have no. They're not people who can say, "Oh, it's not true." The problem is that it's true. So, I pointed that out to him, and I said, make sure your bodyguards are good. I said, make the people who appoint your bodyguards are checked out as well, not just the people you have as bodyguards. See who's appointing the people. I mean, this is not a joke. Not a joke. So. So as I say, after Butler, Elon's team of 200 men took over Trump's protection. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Trump here. They would have tried again, and
I think
and they
so.
would have tried again and again and again. And so that's where we stand.
Well, one thing that I've never really understood with Elon, because I agree with him on almost everything, and I think he is doing such great work, is his close relationship, seemingly, with Benjamin Netanyahu. What is the nature of either your family's relationship with Netanyahu, or maybe it's an ideological thing. I don't know.
Well, we are, as I said earlier, to repeat, we are technical people. Technically, we see Israel as a country we've been to many times that's quite well run. It turned the desert into a beautiful place. We sympathize with the fact that they've done this in this desert, and we admire them. We hear about the Jews wanting to do this and that and the other. We read about these stories, but at the end of the day, they seem to be trying their best to make a proper country there. They're good. They produce goods and so forth. So we're not as a family, and as we don't see them. We see them as quite good people. But when this horrible situation occurred on October 7th, 2 years ago, I mean, there are people who say, well, yes, in the last few years, the Israeli army have killed many, so-called Palestinians. But of course, Palestinians were anybody who lived in that area. They were Jews and Arabs for many years, called Palestinians. But anyway, people of the Arab side were killed by the military. Anyway, so this terrible thing happened by Hamas. And, be that as may, we hear all sorts of stories. It could be this, could be that. But anyway, the thing is, shortly after this whole thing happened, in about December of that year, 2 months after that, I actually got a call from Hamas leadership, me, asking me if I would not ask Elon to provide them with Starlink in Gaza. So I got hold of Elon. I said, look, these people want Starlink. And I said, look, there's never one side to a story. There's always two sides. It's like somebody's perfectly right and somebody's perfectly wrong. There's always two sides to a story. And so Elon agreed, and he said, yes, we will give them Starlink if they will undertake to use it for humanitarian purposes. So Starlink was provided for Hamas. That's how we see it. On the other hand, as far as myself as a person who likes to be in a civilized sort of situation, I find Israel has been beautifully. They've done a good job there. So I like what I see what the Jewish people are doing. As far as Netanyahu is concerned, he struck me over the years as a guy, if I were to be like objective, similar to Putin. I mean, he commands respect. He's been through all sorts of hard times politically. He's fighting for his country. We see it like that. We need to be proved wrong about if we to say we don't, sort of agree with him. I was very impressed when a couple of years ago, Netanyahu, during Biden's administration, Netanyahu said, Elon is the de facto president of the United States. That was quite strange coming from Netanyahu. Elon is actually the de facto president of the United States. But yeah, so there are two sides to every story. And so again, what goes on there is also not right. I would say, I cannot agree with what I see with the Hamas people, where their leaders sit with billions or something living in Qatar, and the people in Gaza. I've been to Israel a few times. I haven't actually been into Gaza, but I've seen where the Arab people live, and that's pretty ugly. They don't live very well, and their leaders have got all this billions. So I read. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, to be honest. I don't know. I would say I'd reserve judgment on that.
Mm-hmm. I guess I get confused when I see Elon say that there's a genocide in South Africa against Boers and
Yes,
white people. Because I've
yes.
been to South Africa, I got family in South Africa. I know that's not true. But then it's like when it comes to Gaza, there's no, he says there's no genocide there. It just makes me question, I guess,
Oh
the
no, no, no.
point of view.
I don't think Elon has said that. Elon has not said there's no genocide
No?
in Gaza. I think what's happened there is I have to reserve. I mean, there obviously what's been going on there makes no sense at all. Um, you know, the killing of people. I mean, it's just terrible. On the other
Yeah.
hand, these Hamas people have taken hostages and killed them, women and children, and killed them. I don't get it. I'm not happy with anything I see there. As far as South Africa is concerned, uh, we don't. I would call it genocide. The blacks are calling for the white people to leave South Africa and go back to where they came from. So, in other words, they want, they really want. They now lately, more and more, they're calling for white people to leave the country. In fact, I've been asked to speak at Oxford Union at the end of this month on that very topic. Should all white people be evicted from Africa? And that's the topic. But as far as killing of white people here is concerned, no. In the farm areas, about 70,000 farmers have been brutally murdered. That's a lot of people in our country. They've been brutally murdered. So much so that you could, between two towns that are very far apart, a little white cross was planted every 1 meter, and the white cross is stretched all the way from one town to another. And so, we have had that. I have made my own observation and said that it's not genocide being practiced here. It's because the government here is very poor. And so we don't have any, the government departments here really don't exist anymore. They exist in name, but they are not functional. So we don't have an airline, we don't have a railway system anymore. We have the best. We had the best airline, the best railway system. We don't have that. We don't have a railway line, we don't have an airline, we don't have railways, we don't have an airline, we don't have home affairs, we don't have hospitals for the state that used to run. There are so many things that we don't have anymore. And one of the other things we don't have is a police force. We used to have a very effective police force. I mean, it's one of the things that, was very good in this country. I'm not talking, it was a civilian police force that was aimed at keeping the law and order, nothing else. And we don't have that anymore. And so these farms in South Africa, which is a very large farming, a lot of farms, here, are just soft targets for criminals. So these people living in remote farm places have been, attacked and killed in their thousands by simply because they're soft targets for a cell phone or for a television set or for whatever they can take. And there's no police. So no police to help stop that. Nothing. You're on your own. So if you're a farmer here in this country, you sit every day with your gun on your lap, your rifle next to you, your wife, children, all doing the same thing. And that's how you have to live. And I had a farm. I lived like that. And in my case, I was at my home one evening when a gang broke in and I killed 3 of them. They fired 52 shots at me. I fired 2 shots, but I'm using a Magnum, so it went right through 2 people. But it was a bloodbath in my home. They just didn't succeed with me, whereas they succeeded with other people.
And thank God they didn't succeed with you. Thank God. And I have no disagreements with you that ANC is a complete mess. It's a complete joke. Terrible management, terrible economic situation. We were talking before we went live. I visited South Africa and I said how beautiful it is. But as far as the government management, boy, you could write a 5-series book, a set of books on this.
Yeah,
It's
it's
very
very,
troubling.
very sad. and and white people have formed little towns where they run little towns pretty well. But as overall, the country is suffering. We are declining. You could say in decline. Everybody knows that. And so, last year we had an election where where I suggested to the president here that we should really have a central government, the main government should actually represent all races, all sorts of people, not based on just black people. Of course, they don't want that. And last year we had an election in which it was possible to put, I think, 2 people who were not black people into the government. And now the call is to have them expelled from the government. So we're getting nowhere here. We're getting nowhere here fast. Nowhere fast, very fast. So it's difficult to one just shakes one's head and says, well, let's just see what happens,
Well, Mr. Musk, I don't want to keep you too long. I know you're a busy man and you just got back from the U.S., as you said, so you need some rest. And you need to enjoy that South African good weather. I hope it's good weather today. But thank you so much for joining me. It's a real honor. It's a real privilege. Like I said, I don't know where I'd be without Elon saving X and you bringing him into this world and, instilling these values in him from a young age, free speech,
yes.
What it means to have true freedom. So thank you for that. And I really enjoyed this conversation.
It's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.